It's the spring season and the California garden is alive. Welcome to the California garden in the month of May. So let's look at what's growing in the California garden. We have tomatoes. Our tomatoes have grown very well in this month and you can see they've already formed fruits. Now I'm growing about 5 varieties of tomatoes this season, and when you see these flowers emerging, make sure that you pollinate them by hand manually so that you can get a lot more fruit, as you can see here. Now some of you have asked me a question that since tomatoes are wind pollinated, do you really need to pollinate them by hand? Well, it depends. If you have a lot of wind in your area, if you have a lot of bees that are visiting your plants, it's okay to not hand pollinate them. But I just do that because the bee population has been decreasing a lot these days, and the only way to ensure that your tomato plant sets fruit is to hand pollinate them. Now a lot of greenhouses which produce tomatoes harbor bumblebees. They actually breed bumblebees for pollination, and that is why the toothbrush method that I have described in my earlier videos works very well to pollinate tomatoes. And as you can see here, these are the cherry tomatoes and they're growing pretty well now. They've even started ripening. And now let's move on to the pepper plant. This pepper plant has been overwintered from the last season. This is the Chile de Arbol pepper plant. You saw an update back in Jan and Feb where this plant wasn't growing very well. Well, look at it now. It's producing a lot of peppers, as you can see here. And as it gets warmer, the pepper plant will produce a lot of peppers. So this is a good cold hardy pepper plant that can be overwintered easily. And our okra seedlings have come up very well, and they're waiting for the weather to get warmer so they can grow to their full potential. And grapes, look at our grapes. They've grown pretty big, and this is the first time we are getting grapes from our grapevine, and I'm very excited. As I mentioned in my previous episode as well, we saw that the grapes were being formed, and now you can see that the grapes have gotten quite big. And they've grown over this wooden support, the arbor that's there next to the grape plant. And our corn has been growing pretty well as well. This variety of corn is the Triple Crown hybrid variety, and this is the first time I'm trying out this corn variety, and so far it's grown pretty well. This bed was enriched with some good organic matter once the cabbages were harvested from this bed from the earlier season. And as you can see here, with a lot of organic matter, a lot of compost that was added, these plants are growing pretty well. They're getting all the nutrients they want. And corn needs a lot of water in the initial stages, so make sure you water your corn plants very well. And another vegetable that's growing in our garden right now is carrots. So carrots are growing in this whiskey barrel container as well as this 5-gallon pot. And May is a good time to grow carrots. It's neither too warm nor too cold. Perfect for carrots. We also have bush beans. This time I tried growing bush beans in this whiskey barrel container, and so far they have been doing well. We're already seeing some flowers and some beans being formed, and this is pretty much the perfect weather to grow beans. And here you can see some beans being formed, the small pods that you see, and they will eventually become larger in size. And now moving on to our harvest. Now we harvested a lot of vegetables in May, beginning with red potatoes, and these had been growing in this tub. Now I didn't really buy the seed potatoes to propagate this one. I just had some potatoes in my kitchen and they had begun sprouting. So I just took a couple and put them in this tub, and they've been growing pretty well since then. So I could have waited for a little longer time to harvest, but I really needed this tub for planting some taro root plants that I have, so I ended up harvesting these potatoes. And as you can see, very nice potatoes, and this tub contains mostly compost and some vermiculite and perlite that was mixed in. So as you can see, an easy harvest. Potatoes are something that I would highly recommend every home gardener to grow. They're just so easy to grow and they taste great. And here is a harvest again. Delicious red potatoes right in your backyard. Strawberries also grow very well during this month, and I have done a video on a strawberry profile. If you like to see more strawberry profile videos, do let me know. Drop in a comment. I have at least 2 or 3 more strawberry varieties that I grow. So if you like to see those videos, let me know. I will post an individual profile for each strawberry plant. That lets you decide which ones are the best for your garden. We also grew some radish in February and March, and we continued harvesting them up till May. Now this radish variety is a 30-day radish variety, easy to grow, and you can keep growing it in your garden. Now moving on to the harvest for our leafy greens. You can see some Swiss chard being harvested here. We have been harvesting this for the past few months, and we continue to harvest Swiss chard as well as kale. Our kale plant has been growing very well and it just keeps giving. So kale and Swiss chard are great leafy greens to grow in your garden. You can get harvest from them for quite a long time. And now moving on to our cabbage harvest. So we did harvest our final cabbage in the month of May, and we had got a lot of cabbage during the past few months during the cooler seasons, and we ended up harvesting this one in May. And after this we do not have any more cabbages growing. We switched over to the summer vegetables, and we also got our first tomatoes. Now this is a determinate tomato variety that was growing in a container. It didn't grow as well as I expected it to grow, but we did get a decent harvest. And the best thing is this was our first tomato harvest for the season. So let's go ahead and harvest a couple of these tomatoes. And we harvested them when they were ripe, and it took us a few days. You can see here the other tomato was harvested after some time when it was ripe. Now moving on to the things to do during this month. You can plant some more radish seeds if you still have a little cooler May in your area. Now this year it's been a little cooler compared to the previous years, so I did go ahead and sow some radish seeds in this container. And if it's getting very warm or very hot in your area, you can skip growing this vegetable because this vegetable doesn't like heat. But I still went ahead and sowed some seeds. And the seedlings emerged quite quickly, and this radish is usually ready within about 40 days. Now another activity that you need to do in your garden this month is to make sure that you prune your tomato plants well. Now the biggest reason why we get diseases in tomato plants is when the foliage touches the ground. So after the plant is well established, make sure that you trim all the foliage, all the leaves from the bottom part of the plant, and this has 2 benefits. The first benefit is that it lets a lot of air in, so when your tomatoes are growing, they get a little bit of air, they ripen quickly. They also get a little bit of sunlight, which was missing with all this dense foliage. But the most important thing is when the foliage touches dirt or water, I mean you cannot really avoid water, but when it touches dirt, the soil, there is a tendency for the plant to pick up some diseases. Now luckily these tomato plants have been growing pretty well. They do not have any diseases as of now. I did see some leaves getting infected by rust, and as long as you just remove those leaves, you should be fine. But as you can see here, I'm trimming the foliage around the plant base, and as the plant grows and as the leaves start yellowing, it may be a good idea to start removing the foliage from around the plant. And there is no single rule as to how much you should remove. Just go with your best feeling, whatever you think is okay. This is what I have done. You can see here the cherry tomatoes are now much more open to the air and sunlight. So there we have it. That was our episode on how the California garden looks like in the month of May. If you have any questions, drop in a comment below. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you again soon. Happy gardening!